Nice to meet you. This is a cool view. Today is February 12th, 2026. The most frequently mentioned word in recent news is OBBA One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It sounds really great just by the name, right? A big and beautiful bill. This is the very bill that President Trump boasted as the greatest tax cut in history. Many people think about it too simply. Tax cuts will help companies make money, right? Stocks will go up, right? Isn't the dollar strong because the U.S. economy is doing well? There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. When someone pops the champagne, someone else has to pay the bill. You need to be aware of the terrifying fact that the bill for this massive fireworks display initiated by Trump is currently weighing down our interest rates and exchange rates. Today, I will thoroughly dissect the essence of this OBBA bill and provide clear answers to the questions you are most curious about. When will interest rates actually go down? And I will analyze it in a way that even my high school nephew can understand. 1. Dissecting OBBA. Dad's salary has decreased. But he bought a Ferrari? First, let me explain what OBBA is without any complicated economic jargon. The key points of this bill are just two. First, I'll significantly cut taxes. Corporate tax reduction, tip exemptions, childbirth support funds, I'll spend more of the national budget. Secondly, infrastructure investment, increase in defense spending. Shall we bring this into our household budget? Dad suddenly gathers the family and makes an announcement. Honey, kids, starting today, Dad's working hours at the company will be reduced, and his salary will decrease by 30% tax cut. But it feels great. Let's buy beef every day and switch to a Ferrari increased spending. The family will be excited for now. Because we eat beef and drive a Ferrari. However, the most important question has been left out. Dad, where does that money come from? Trump said. Just extort the toll tariff from the neighbor China to cover it. However, after crunching the numbers, the money that can be made from tariffs is woefully insufficient. In the end, there is only one way. Swipe the card and incur debt. In other words, the U.S. government is frantically printing and selling a promissory note called U.S. Treasury bonds in the market. This is the reality of OBBA, a massive debt party. So 2. The national debt bomb and the crowding out effect. Why do interest rates rise when there are more goods? Please pay attention. This is where it gets important. What does it matter to me that the U.S. is borrowing money, you might think? It matters a lot. The U.S. Treasury is flooding the market with bonds to borrow money. Let's think about the basic principles of economics, supply and demand. When there are 10 apples in the market, they cost 1,001 But what happens if suddenly a truck dumps 10,000 apples? The price of apples will drop significantly. I guess I would have to sell them for 101 while saying, please buy them. The bond market is the same. Since too many government bonds are being issued, they aren't selling. So what should the government do? They should put a discount sticker on the apples, right? Discount in the bond market means offering a higher interest rate. Originally, I was only going to offer 3% interest, but it's not selling? I'll give you 4%, 5%. Please buy it. This illustrates the principle that when government bond prices fall, since the government is willing to pay 5% interest to borrow money, all the money in circulation flows into government bonds. So, will it be easy or difficult for private companies or banks to get money? Obviously, it's difficult. The U.S. government is offering 5%, so Samsung Electronics, you should offer 6% or 7%, right? In the end, the government sucks up all the money in the market like a vacuum cleaner, forcibly raising the overall market interest rates. This is referred to in technical terms as crowding out. The real reason why Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh cannot lower interest rates right now, even if he wants to, is this. Of course, given the circumstances, there is a high probability that rates will be lowered. Even if Washington is currently thinking, I want to lower interest rates because I'm worried about a recession, we need to borrow money, so government is saying, hey. That's why the price of the TLT U.S. long-term Treasury ETF you hold is currently stagnant. It's not because the U.S. is failing, but rather because there is too much supply of government bonds causing a backlog. The truth about a strong dollar. It's not about the price, but about maintaining the brand. So why isn't the value of the dollar falling like this? The U.S. Finance Minister Besant said in a hearing, "Strong dollar is in our national interest." Many people misunderstand and think, they are going to keep raising the exchange rate. It's going to 501, 1601. However, we need to interpret the meaning of strong correctly here. This is not a story about price, but rather about status brand. Shall we use an analogy? Let's think about the luxury watch Rolex. When Rolex says, "We are a strong brand," does that mean they intend to raise prices indefinitely? It means we are not a counterfeit, and we are the real deal that is recognized for its value anywhere, The United States must sell its debt government bonds to the world right now. But if the value of the dollar suddenly halves and becomes worthless, who would buy U.S. government bonds? No one would. So this is what Vincent means. Don't worry. We might lower interest rates a bit, but we won't let the dollar become worthless like Zimbabwean money. The dollar is still the best currency in the world. So rest assured and buy our government bonds. In other words, what they want is orderly depreciation. Maintain the status of the dollar, but let its value drop very slowly and slightly for the sake of exports and debt repayment. However, emerging countries like South Korea have weaker economic strength zombie economy, so even a slight show of strength from the dollar can cause the won to panic and crash. The U.S. is slowly trying to go down the stairs, while Korea is in a situation where the elevator is crashing. Wherefore, Trump's secret weapon, financial repression, sitting back and melting away debt, and now has started. The debt party. Interest rates are high, and side effects are about to explode. How will Trump and his aides break through this situation? Will they just go bankrupt? No. They will use the terrifying magic called financial repression. What this means is a technique that eliminates the real value of debt using inflation. Let me explain it simply. You borrowed 100 million won from a friend. A bowl of jjajangmyeon is currently 10,000 won. But suddenly, let's say the prices skyrocketed and a bowl of jjajangmyeon became 100 million won. Then what should you do? You can just not eat a bowl of jjajangmyeon and use that money to pay off the 100 million won. Paying off debt is really easy, right? This is exactly the strategy of the U.S. government. 1. Maintain high prices. Keep the inflation rate at 3-4% through OBBA and tariffs. 2. Suppress interest rates, pressure the Federal Reserve to keep Treasury bond rates lower than inflation. 3. Result. The government borrows money at low interest and repays it later. You just sit back and have your debt forgiven. Who do you think is the biggest victim in this scenario? It's the person holding cash. Because the value of the money saved through hard work disappears without me even realizing it. This is called invisible tax. Mayabura 5. Action Plan. Survival strategies for business owners in the cash waste era. Here is the conclusion. In this massive scam, or rather economic drama, how can we survive? The answer is already out there. TLT, non-fungible company stocks dollars. This is the Babel strategy. First, accumulate TLT US long-term bonds. But isn't there a lot of government bond supply? Causing prices to drop? So now is the time. Once the debt party caused by OBBA ends and a recession hits, or if the government starts financial repression, the Fed will inevitably have to buy government bonds YCC. When that time comes, the suppressed bond prices will soar like a spring. Right now is the artificial bargain sale created by the government period. Buy it when it's cheap. Second, buy stocks of companies that are irreplaceable. When the value of money melts away inflation, there is only one type of company that survives. A company that can raise prices and pass the costs on to consumers, even when prices go up. This refers to companies that have monopolized when currency becomes trash, technology becomes irreplaceable companies. Third, abandon the won and hold on to dollars, USDT. When the US has a cold, Korea catches the flu and suffers. Even a slight adjustment in the value of the dollar by Trump greatly shakes the won. If Korea is stable, holding either won or dollars does not result in a loss of wealth. However, when the world is shaken, the status difference between the dollar and the won is like night and day. To protect our purchasing power, converting won assets to dollars is not an investment, but survival. Trump's OBBA is a glamorous party built on debt. When this party ends and the waiter brings the bill, those who were just holding cash in a daze will be slaughtered, while those who had already taken refuge in government bonds and top-tier assets will be able to ride the market thrives on wealth. Do not be swayed by that fear. Instead, look at the facts and principles with a clear mind. If you want to respond a step ahead of others, setting up notifications is essential. I was a cold view. May today be a day to protect your assets. Thank you.